Hello folks, this is Stephen from Secrets of Tax Lien Investing. Tonight we are doing the webinar. Now I know we usually have the weekly webinar, and I was not sure exactly what my timetable would be, and if I was going to be able to be by the computer and with the internet at the right time this evening. So I was not able to. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and record a webinar, send it out to you guys to listen to. So tonight what we're going to be talking about is how to get started with over-the-counter tax lien investing. So we're going to talk about over-the-counter tax liens, we're going to talk about over-the-counter tax deeds, and we're going to go through exactly how to get started with tax lien and tax deed investing. So we're going to have a lot of information we're going to go over this evening. Also, if you're watching this at a later date, we're going to go through and look at some live over-the-counter tax liens that you can purchase online. So we've got a lot of information this evening. Let's go ahead and get started. So these are some of the topics that we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about what is over-the-counter investing. We're also going to talk about how does over-the-counter tax liens and deeds work. How do over-the-counter tax liens and deeds work? Why does the county have over-the-counter properties? We're also going to talk about what type of properties can I find in over-the-counter list and over-the-counter sales. You know, what type of properties can I find? We're going to go through all this information, and we're actually going to look at tax lien certificates online that you can purchase this evening. So let's go ahead and talk about over-the-counter tax liens and deeds. So first of all, I want to go over some quick basics just so we all have an understanding of what is tax liens, what is tax deeds, and what is redemption deeds. I think it's important. I know we're going to go through it quickly. I'm sure most of you have probably already went through this before, but I quickly want to do it in most of the webinars that I teach, mostly because we have new students coming in, and also it helps you, you can't learn too much about tax liens and deeds. So let's go ahead and get through it quickly, and then we'll get into over-the-counter. So as far as tax lien certificates, tax liens are the enforcement method used by the government for the collection of property taxes. So tax liens are a lien against real property. Now, these tax liens can be offered to us as investors. What we do is we pay off the delinquent taxes, and we can purchase these either at an auction, a live auction at a county courthouse. We can purchase them online, or we can purchase them over the counter. Now, tax lien certificates, they pay investors a rate of return, and they give the property owners a redemption period to repay the taxes. Now, one thing that's incredibly important about tax lien certificates is that the tax lien has a foreclosure right. If the lien is not paid back within the redemption period, then the lien holder, the investor, us, can foreclose on the property and become the property's owner. So really the property is acting like collateral for the tax lien certificate. So, you know, tax liens are usually going to be purchased for a small percentage of the property's value. So really we're investing, we're getting a guaranteed interest rate return, and that tax lien certificate has a foreclosure right. So tax deeds. Tax deed states have the same objective as tax lien certificate states. Their objective is to collect the delinquent property taxes. But what tax deed states do is they do not sell tax liens annually. They don't sell tax lien certificates at all. What they do is they wait until the redemption period is passed. So tax deed states will usually have a longer redemption period, anywhere from 2 to 5 years. So if somebody's delinquent for 4 years, the county will go ahead and foreclose on the property, and then they offer up at a tax deed sale. So they create a tax deed, a quitclaim deed, and you're able to purchase that property at the auction. Now, tax deeds are really just a form of real estate investing. You're buying property at the auction, so it's really just a tax sale foreclosure. These, similar to a mortgage foreclosure, except for tax deeds, are going to be offered for anywhere. They're going to start the opening bidding at anywhere between 5 to 10% of market value, and then they're going to sell anywhere between 10 to 50% of market value. Now, sometimes they may go a little bit higher than that, but usually we recommend, having a specific price on each one of your properties before you go to the auction. So, you know, if the property goes above your price, you just go ahead and let the property go, because there's always going to be another tax deed you can purchase. So when we think of tax deeds, really what we're just thinking about is real estate investing. Now, redemption deeds, they're similar to tax liens and tax deeds. Really what redemption deeds are tax deeds with a redemption period. Now, usually redemption deeds are going to have a shorter redemption period than a tax lien certificate. They'll go anywhere from 2 months to 2 years. Now, redemption deeds, they pay usually very high interest rate returns. And really, it's more of a penalty return. In addition to that, some ownership rights are going to be extended to the deed holders during the redemption period. Also, we talked about that penalty, and redemption deeds like Texas, for example, will offer a 25% penalty. So if the property owner redeems after 2 weeks, you're going to get a 25% return on your investment. And depending on the type of property in Texas, Texas has a 6-month and a 2-year redemption period. So for homestead properties, somebody's single-family home that they live in, they give them 2 years before 2 years to come back and redeem the property. Now, during that time, you as the redemption deed holder, have property ownership rights. So you could live in the property, you could rent the property out. You can even get paid for maintaining the property. You just don't want to put a new wing on the property, because there's a chance that property owner could redeem it. So really, you're getting a tax deed. You know, that's essentially what's happening. But the property owner has that chance to come and pay the property back. But usually redemption deeds are going to bid up in price like a tax deed. So the bidding, let's say, a bidding starts at $10,000 and may go up to $20,000. The property owner is going to have to pay that $20,000. So really, they're just giving them a chance. Hey, this property is pretty much, going to be yours, but this property owner, the old property owner, will have, a 6-month period to come and pay the property back. Or on a homestead property and farmland, you're looking at a 2-year redemption period. But any type of rental, commercial property, land, anything like that, we're talking about a 6-month redemption period. Georgia has a 1-year redemption period. And so that, both Georgia and Texas are redemption deed states that have tax sales every single month. So every month on the same day, they're going to have their tax deed auctions. And so once you kind of understand how redemption deeds work, it's not so confusing. It's essentially a deed, but the property owner has that chance to try to redeem the property, but you pretty much have property ownership during that time frame. So redemption deeds are a lot less likely to pay off than a tax lien certificate. 95% of tax liens nationwide will pay off. Redemption deeds, that can totally range. You could have a 50-50 shot, or even higher than that, of the the property owner not paying off. So essentially what they do is they wait until that redemption period is passed, then they will issue the deed. You essentially already have the deed, but they'll go ahead and record it at the county courthouse. So that's how all 3 of the systems work. Now tonight, we're going to talk about over-the-counter investing. There's really 3 ways you can purchase property. We talked about online auctions last week. We're talking about over-the-counter investing this evening. So what is over-the-counter? Well, over-the-counter is a term used to describe tax liens that are available directly from the county. This is also referred to as assignment purchasing. Okay, now this property was a tax lien certificate that was purchased by one of my students. We can see it's a nice single-family home, and it's on a big lot right on a lake. This lake also connects to other lakes and rivers, so it's kind of on a river community. The property had a market value, a Zillow value, of about $325,000. Between $275,000 and $325,000, and this tax lien certificate is earning 18% on this tax lien. So this tax lien was purchased over the counter. Now, not every single one of the over-the-counter tax lien certificates are going to be a nice large home on a lake, but what's most important is when we're looking at over-the-counter tax liens, we're looking at the tax lien amount, including any roll-up, versus the value of the property. So what roll-up is roll-up is any additional tax lien certificates on the property. So let's say you purchased an over-the-counter tax lien from 2005, but there's also a tax lien, from 2015, but there's also a tax lien from 2014 and 2013. So if you were to go ahead and try to foreclose on that property, you would need to pay off any additional tax lien certificates so that you can. So essentially, you are the owner of all of the tax liens. Then you can go ahead and foreclose on the property. Now in Florida, the foreclosure is actually handled by the county. This is one thing that makes Florida such a good state to start tax lien certificate investing in if you don't want to worry about doing a foreclosure. If you don't want to try to find a law firm or some type of attorney that can do the foreclosure for you, unless you live within that area and are able to do it, then Florida is a good state at least to get started with, because essentially what you do is you fill out a deed application with the county. The county will go ahead and foreclose on the property, and at that point the property will be put up to a tax deed sale. If it gets sold at the tax deed sale, then you will be paid off the total amount that you purchased plus your interest rate return. So overall you're looking at a great investment. Now you're going to have less chance of getting the property. If it doesn't sell at the deed auction, then what will happen is you can go ahead and acquire the property. So Florida is a little bit different than most other states, but it is a great state for tax lien certificate investing. So you have a little bit less chance of getting a property, but you've got a higher chance of getting your interest rate return. So it really depends on how you look at it. And if you want to acquire property, then you just do Florida tax deed investing. So there is a little payoff on either end. But if it is a good state. They offer high interest rate return. The counties are easy to work with. There's a lot of tax lien certificates, and you don't have to do the foreclosure. So how are over-the-counter tax liens created and eventually offered? Well, first of all, a standard tax sale is going to be conducted. So if it's an online auction, if it's a live auction, they're going to have their yearly tax sale or their monthly tax sale or whatever it is that particular county or state does. Now, there are going to be some liens that aren't sold to investors during the auction. Now, these liens are either going to be put back onto the books to be offered at the next sale. Or they may have what's called a resale, where they resell those same properties or tax lien certificates or tax deeds. Or they're offered directly to the public through over-the-counter investing. Now, what are the advantages of over-the-counter investing? Well, first of all, no travel is required. In fact, you don't even need to leave your home. You can do tax lien investing from the comfort of your home. In fact, really, after listening to this webinar, if you wanted to, you could go out there and start purchasing tax lien certificates. It's really that easy once you understand the basics and you know how to go out there and find them. Also, less competition. You're not going to be competing with bidders that increase the price or lower the interest rate return. So if it's a bid up premium bid state, you have to bid up that price of the tax lien certificate. If you participated in the auction, with over the counter, you just purchase it for that price, and then you get the highest interest rate return. In a bid down interest rate, like a state like Florida, you get it at the highest interest rate, so you get it at 18%. There's a big selection of over-the-counter tax liens. And also with over-the-counter investing, many different strategies can be utilized. Okay, so why did the lien or deed not sell at the auction? Well, I talk to people all the time, and many are under the impression that over-the-counter tax liens or over-the-counter tax deeds are are leftover, worthless pieces of property. Now, there are a number of different reasons why a tax lien or tax deed could be offered, could not be sold at the auction, and why they could be offered directly to the public after the auction. Number one is there could be more liens or more tax deeds than investors and money at the auction. Let's say that there's $1 million worth of property being sold at a local tax deed auction that you attend in person, but there's only $500,000 between the investors there. Not all of those properties are going to sell at the auction. Also, bidder default. Sometimes people will get excited, what we call emotional bidding, and they will bid more than they have the ability to pay, or they didn't do their due diligence before the auction. These are the two reasons why bidder default, and it actually happens quite often. Now, it's not going to happen all the time, all the property, but it does happen. You will see it occasionally in auctions. Also, there could be a mistake in the original offering. So how does over-the-counter investing work? Well, first of all, the county will put all of the available tax liens together on an over-the-counter list. Now, this list can be obtained by contacting the county directly. Also, over-the-counter lists can range in size, guys, from just a few tax liens to literally thousands of separate tax lien certificates or tax deed properties in some cases. Now, how do you do it? Well, first of all, the investor, you're just going to conduct the usual due diligence. So you're going to check into the property records. You're going to review the value. You're going to go through the normal steps that you would in investing in any other tax lien certificate. Now, once you've found a lien and you've picked it, you're going to contact the county to make a payment arrangement. You usually know that by reading the county question and answers and the rules within the county website. Also, with some of the counties in Florida, you can purchase those tax liens right online using a debit card. So, tax lien certificate investing does not need to be that hard, especially when we're looking at over-the-counters. So once that payment has been confirmed, or once you have purchased that tax lien online, the county will go ahead and create a tax lien certificate for you. Now, back in the old days, they used to send out tax liens, in paper form. That's not something that most of the counties do anymore. It's all done online. It's all done electronically, and so you have a tax lien certificate. You may not get a tax lien in the mail, but you will get, you will have access to all of that tax lien online, and many counties will send you out information on that tax lien certificate. Now, what type of properties can be purchased through over-the-counter investing? I get asked this quite often, and with over-the-counter tax liens and deeds, I have found and find single-family homes, commercial properties, commercial and residential land and building lots, large chunks of land, value, and just many different types of valuable property. I found cabin and mountain lot property and farmland and all kinds of different properties through over-the-counter tax lien and tax deed investing. Now, what kind of properties should you avoid? First, and the most important, is you want to avoid useless land. This is the type of property that is 5 feet by 100 feet in somebody's backyard. This is that little square piece of property between two lots that nobody really owns. These are the type of properties that you want to avoid. As long as you avoid useless land, if you can just eliminate useless land, there's not a lot of mistakes you can make. I mean, it's possible you can make a mistake, but that's going to eliminates 90% of the risk. Is just make sure you don't invest in a piece of property that is useless. And these type of properties can include, irregular building lots, land with little to no value, properties with easements, and commercial land with environmental issues, which is very, very rare. So, essentially, if you avoid these type of properties, you're really going to have a 99.9% success rate in investing in tax lien certificates to either make an interest rate return on your money, or if possible to acquire a great property. Because if you avoid these properties, you're picking up the property for a small fraction of the property's value. So let's talk about investing for interest rate returns. Some investors want to invest for primarily interest rate returns. Some investors want to try to get a property. And so there's different things you can do to invest for interest rate returns. Now, really the key for investing in over-the-counter liens for interest rate returns is to invest in tax liens that are more likely to redeem. So because you're looking for long-term investments, you can also invest in states with longer redemption periods. Also, if you're buying the first lien, you're going to get the opportunity to buy the next year's lien. So when the next tax lien certificate comes available, or if it does, you have the opportunity to purchase it. And why is that advantage? Well, because if you go to foreclose, you're going to have to pay off those tax lien certificates anyway. So why pay somebody interest when you can be earning that interest yourself? Because whoever buys that tax lien is going to start earning interest, and you're going to have to pay them off to foreclose. So you might as well earn the interest versus paying it. Now, if you don't buy that next year lien, it's not going to be the end of the world, but you are going to have to pay that extra interest to foreclose on the property, in addition to any tax and certificates on the property. And there's certain things you can look for when investing in tax and certificates to get interest rate returns. For example, I was looking at some over-the-counter tax liens today in Florida, and I found tax liens where maybe there was one tax lien on the property, or there was just maybe two tax liens on the property, and there was 5 or 3 or 2 redeemed tax liens, meaning that the property owner had delinquent tax, had been delinquent on their property taxes before, but had ended up paying the next year, 2 years later, they paid off 2 years or whatever. Essentially, they're just late paying off their tax lien certificates. And so a property like that, you're going to have a pretty good chance that property owner is going to do the same thing. He's going to pay off your tax lien certificate. You're going to earn your interest rate return, without going through the foreclosure process. So as far as properties to look for when you are investing for interest rate returns, we're going to look for single family homes, good clean commercial buildings. Also, something that we actually look for a lot is buildable residential lots, commercial land. When you're looking at over-the-counter investing, there's going to be single family homes that you can find. But you're going to have to really dig to be able to find really nice ones. I found all kinds of different lower-end single-family homes today, and I found lots of mobile homes and things like that when I was looking in just these online over-the-counter list. Now, the online list may not have as many of those overlooked properties as a actual Excel list. So as you get more involved with tax lien certificates, you can go through and research some of the Excel type list and find maybe those properties that are a little bit diamond in the roughs, like the tax lien I showed you earlier from one of my students. But there is going to be tons of good tax lien certificates. So what's going to be most important is what is the amount that we are investing versus the amount of the property. So if you're investing in a tax lien that I call it the lien to value ratio. What is that lien amount versus the value of the property? If you're investing in a tax lien certificate, let's say it's a $300 tax lien, but it's on a building lot worth $12,000 assessed value, and as far as market value, could be worth anywhere from there up to 20. Well, is your $300 protected by that $20,000 property? Absolutely. And if you were able to acquire that property for $300, and let's say that there's 2 other liens, so you end up paying a total of $900, and you get a property worth 20 grand, you can turn around and sell that property. I mean, let's say you end up spending $1,000 on it. to pay on any of the delinquent taxes. If you got that property, you're obviously hitting a home run. I mean, you're not going to make $50,000 off of it or $100,000, but if you can make $10,000 off of it, $10,000 is a a great return off of a $1,000 investment. And so, when you're looking at over-the-counter tax liens, there's certain things you can look for. Also, what about investing in over-the-counters to acquire property? So let's say you don't want to go through the process of doing taxing certificates. You're just really 100%. Your goal is to acquire property. Well, first of all, you can invest in over-the-counter deeds. Let me see something real quick. Okay. Okay, I'm going to first talk about this one, then we'll go back to the other one. So what techniques can I use to acquire property? Well, first of all, you can buy tax liens that are already into the redemption period. So that way you can go ahead and start to foreclose quickly. So if you're just looking to acquire property and that's your main goal, then you're going to look at tax liens, and you want to buy tax liens, then you're going to look at tax liens that you're going to have a higher chance of foreclosing and acquiring the property. And so you may look at taxing certificates that actually have more tax liens on it. Usually I recommend, for normal tax sale investing, with the chance of getting a property to invest into tax liens anywhere between 1 to 5% of the property's value. But if you're trying to acquire property, then you may have more than that. You may have several taxing certificates on the property, so you may have to pay off an additional roll-up that's quite a bit higher. So maybe you go up to 10 or 15%. A property owner that has to pay 15% of delinquent taxes so that they can foreclose, so that they don't get their property foreclosed on, is going to have a lot harder time paying off than somebody that owns 5%, as far as the total amount of the property. And so, with tax and certificate investing, there is ways you can acquire property. Now in Florida, those properties will go to that deed sale, and if they get sold there, then you get paid back. If not, you acquire the property. But there are other states out there where you can purchase tax liens and you do the foreclosure, but you get the property, completely. So there's other states you can look in, states like Nebraska and others, where they have these over-the-counter lists. And there's quite, a bunch of different states out there, even in Arizona, where you can purchase these tax liens, foreclose on it, and if it goes through foreclosure, you automatically get the property. You can also buy redemption deeds in Texas that are called struck off. This is where you can go ahead and purchase, essentially redemption deeds over the counter. Also, you can buy tax deeds that were left over after the tax deed auction. This is what we're going to talk about here just in a minute, over-the-counter tax deeds. Also, you can bid at resale auctions. Now, resale auctions aren't really over-the-counters, but it's closer to an over-the-counter. It's closer to an over-the-counter than to a normal auction in some ways. And the reason is because they're going to start many of these resales with low opening bids. So right now in Michigan, they have auctions that start with a $100 bid. In fact, I helped a lady today that one of my students. I helped her, purchase some tax deeds in one of these Michigan sales. And so these tax deeds, I mean, she purchased them for $250. It's worth about $5,500, $6,000, and it's a really nice little building lot. It has an older garage on it, but it's something that can easily be sold, especially if you're selling it for a discounted price. So if she sells it for $2,000 or $2,500, puts a sign on the property and list it on Craigslist and online, she has a pretty good chance of selling the property. It had the assessed value of about $5-6 grand, but it probably worth closer to 8. So, she could sell it for a discounted price because she paid such a small price for it and get out of the property quicker. And that's a great way to start, at a smaller level and pick up a property and then turn around and sell it for a discounted price, where you're able to sell it quickly, get out of the property quickly. But now, that gives you a lot more money to invest. So she invested in 2 of them. She can make anywhere between off the total investment, it was under $1,000, I think about $700 total for both properties, and she could easily sell those properties for anywhere between $4,000 to $15,000 in profit, just depending how quickly she wants to sell it. And so, she wants to sell those quickly, get out the profit, and now have more money to reinvest into a nicer property. And so, that's where you can do over-the-counter investing. And you can also, you can see, because of these resells, it's a little bit like over-the-counters, because essentially what they're doing is they're offering over-the-counter properties. These are the properties that have been on the books. Nobody's purchased them at the normal auction because they probably had a pretty high opening bid amount. And there's so many properties at the auction that, people are picking and choosing. But when you're picking that property up in these resales, at $250, well, then it turns into a whole different investment. Because you have the ability to resell that to somebody. I mean, that would be a great property where if you just wanted to sit on it, you could go ahead and seller finance that to somebody within the neighborhood. If they knew they could, they could seller you would seller finance the property to them, where they pay a monthly amount. A lot of properties owners would do that, or a lot of next door neighbors or something like that, where you give it to them for a great price, and then you go ahead, you could charge them an interest, or you could just go ahead and just essentially have them pay 100% principal. It's up to you. There might be advantages to do either way, but you could essentially be bringing in income, have an agreement with them. If they don't pay, then after a certain period of time, essentially the deal is done. They've essentially lost their money at that point that they've put into it, and you can always be flexible. I mean, as well. So, when it comes to just starting to build some type of residual income, purchasing different properties like this and seller financing or lease optioning is a great way to look at it, where you're essentially acting like the bank and just getting monthly income coming in. And so that that's something to look at as well. In some of these different type of camp lots and things like that, or this type of property where you could use that essentially that strategy. So why invest in over-the-counter deeds? Well, first of all, they can be one of the fastest way to get a return on your investment. You could buy tax deeds and sell them immediately. You can buy tax deeds and rent them. You can even buy tax deeds and hold them if you'd like, if you think that it's going to go up in property value and you don't mind sitting on the property for a while. Especially when essentially when you're buying these properties for such a discounted price, sometimes it may not be a bad idea to hold on property. We don't necessarily always recommend that, but it might be a good something to look at on some properties, because essentially, you've purchased it for such a low price. If you buy it for 10, let's say 5% of its value, or 10%, or even 15%, and that property area is going up in value, it may be worth it to sit on it for a year or two, or rent the property out, or seller finance, or use one of these other strategies. Or you can also, sell it, number one, for a discounted wholesale price, like the student I talked about today, or you can go through what's called quiet title and sell it for top market value. Really, that's something that you decide, is really before you even make the investment. Also, there are going to be thousands of tax deeds available in states across the country. Now, with more tax deeds going to auction than ever before, there are more leftover tax deeds available. Now, these tax deeds can be purchased for the back taxes, and they can range in price from 5 to 15% of the property's value. Okay. So here's a list of over-the-counter names that are sometimes associated with, with over-the-counter properties. First of all, we have what's called the list of lands. This is a term commonly used in Florida for over-the-counter tax deeds. We obviously have over-the-counter. We have OTC. OTC stands for over-the-counter investing. That's a term that is used a lot throughout tax lien and deed investing. Also in Texas, they have what's called struck-off properties. They've also been called state tax land, or tax land for state. Different kind of play on words of those three words. Also, land bank properties is a new term that's being used in some counties. In Pennsylvania, they have respiratory properties, upset bid properties. So those are the other names that you might find. Oh, in fact, we've left out one of the biggest that should be included, and that's called assignment purchasing. And so assignment purchasing, over the counter, those are the most common, but you might find some of these other names that are associated with really just over-the-counter properties, over-the-counter tax liens or deeds. So can I buy over-the-counter tax liens online? Well, yes, you can buy and pay for tax liens online in Florida and Arizona. So essentially what this means is you can purchase these tax liens without contacting the county and without sending off a payment. You can pretty much do this all online. Now, Real Auction and Grant Street Group are the companies that offer websites for the counties so that they can offer over-the-counter tax liens available on their auction website. So as we know, and we talked about last week in the online auction webinar training that we did for our members, each county has its own website that's completely dedicated to the tax lien sale. And these websites can be used to offer over-the-counter tax liens. Now, essentially what we do is we can review, we can research, and we can buy these tax liens right off of this website. So as we talked about a little bit last week, realauction.com is one of the companies that offer over-the-counter tax liens. You go ahead and click on preview items for sale. They'll also have many times they'll have a tab that says purchase county held liens or over the counters. Also, Grant Street Group is another company that offers Florida counties the ability to offer their over the counters online as well. So Secrets of Tax Lien Investing has a lot of over-the-counter tax liens. I had a student email me this week and was asking about some of the older lists on our over-the-counter list. And as far as the over-the-counter list, they're going to be anywhere between 30 to 90 days, just depending on, and there's some, I guess I should say, one week from 30 days. Because it's really a process of finding and uploading new tax sale lists. And so if you find a tax sale list on the website, the first thing you're always going to want to do is to go to the county website and get that brand new list. Now, once I have more time, I'll be able to update the over-the-counters instead of every 2 months or so on a weekly basis. But really, it takes about 100 hours, 120 hours a month just with the over-the-counter tax liens to do it every single month, where they're new list every month. And so also there's going to be some lists that are older list. Maybe they're a couple of years old. That's because that is the same list or the only list the county is still offering on their website. So if that's their only list and it does have over-the-counter properties on it, we're going to go ahead and put it on the website as well. Now, as we eventually move over to a paid website, then we'll be able to update the list really on a weekly basis. Essentially, I'm doing this all myself right now. So let's go ahead and let's start researching and look at some over-the-counter tax liens, and we're really going to go look at tax lien certificates in Florida. Okay. So the first thing we're going to do, guys, is we're going to go to Secrets of Tax Lien Investing, and we're going to go to the Members section. Now, once we get into the Members section, we're going to go ahead and click on the Online Auctions tab. Now, I need to move it over to the over-the-counter list database as well. I just haven't done it yet, but you can find them all here in Online Auctions. Now, with over-the-counter online properties, the only real estates that offer it are going to be Florida and one county in Arizona. And at this time, they don't offer any of over-the-counter tax deeds online. So we're going to go ahead and click on Tax Lien Internet Auctions, and we're going to go down to Florida. Now you can see that I've separated Florida from Real Auction Online Auctions and Grant Street Group. I used to have them all together, but I figured I'd go ahead and separate them by company because you may be, that way if you register with one company, you can see all of the different counties that use the exact same system. So essentially, you'll be able to use the same username and password. Okay. Now, once we get here, we can see that there's, several different counties in Real Auction. We can also see the different counties offered by Grant Street Group. If it says county sale held online, we can go ahead and purchase over the counters. Now, first thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and go to Putnam County. And that's just because I looked at this county first. You can find good tax lien certificates and maybe even better tax lien certificates in any of the other auction websites. It's really just a matter of going through and reviewing them. Now, with Grant Street Group, there is some sweet features that I like about them. And there's also some things that, I like about Real Auction more. But, they're both websites that we can use to purchase over-the-counter tax liens. Now, with over-the-counter tax liens on Grant Street Group, what we have the ability to do over here is limit our search. So we can limit our search from assessed value. We can limit our search from price. We can also limit as far as tax years. So if I wanted to look at tax liens that were $100 by $500, I could go ahead and type that in. And we could go ahead and view. There's a button right up here at the top. Okay, that did it. Then if I wanted to separate them by year, I could go ahead and click on it and separate them by year. So here we're looking at tax liens from between $1 to $500 from the year 2014. Now you can see this Add to Cart button. You can go ahead and click on that and save that if that's a tax lien you like. Now, as far as the list, we're not going to see a ton of information right here. What we are going to see, of course, is the tax year, 2014. Then the issue date was 6/1. So, the tax year, the delinquent tax year was from 2014. The certificate was sold on June 1st of this year. Then we have the certificate number, the account number, the parcel number, and the purchase amount. So this first tax lien certificate is for $393.56. We can go ahead and click on the certificate number and pull up information about this tax lien certificate. So we can see it's earning an 18% interest rate. It's from 2014. The owner is right here. The property it just says Northwest 44 Avenue. So this property doesn't have a full address. Usually, especially if you're a first-time investor, you want to have a full address. Also, looking down here at the value, I can see the assessed value is listed at $1,800. Now, the assessed value in Florida is very underassessed, especially for underappraised. So the property value is going to be worth more than the assessed value, especially for land. Land is really underassessed. But in looking at this tax lien, $360 for $1,800, no address, I'm not going to waste any time looking more into that tax lien certificate. I can also see down here that there's 6 outstanding certificates. So that tells me that there's a lot of tax liens that have been issued on this property, and none of those property owners have went to go pay them off. So, the no address, the lower value, and the 6 outstanding certificates tell me all I need to know about this particular property. Here's a tax lien for $114. Now this tax lien, also we can see down here, has 7 tax lien certificates. Has a value of about $4,790 as far as the taxable value. So we also can see that it's North Sunrise Lake Roads. Now this tax lien might be worth looking at depending on what these outstanding certificates are, because you can see that there's been 12 issued and there's 7 of them now. So this is probably also a property that you wouldn't want to invest into. Now, if this certificate outstanding here was 2 and we're looking at $100, I might look into it. Yes, this property doesn't have a full address, but you could look a little bit more into it and just see. And we can do that by going down here and clicking on the tax collector's website. But I want to try to see if we can see a good property. Another one. Now this one has a higher assessed value down here at $10,000, but I can see there's 6 certificates on here. And so, you could possibly look into it, but, it is a little bit higher. One thing I might do, and we'll see, let's go ahead and okay. A lot of these tax liens, I haven't been to this county before, have a lot of outstanding tax liens. It's not a bad property value, but there is a lot of tax liens on it. And it does have a full address. You can see that this property owner, let me go ahead and point out something real quick. We can see that, this property does have a full address right here. We can see it has a market value, assessed value of $11,200. So, it's possible it could be worth 15, maybe 20, depending on the property. We can see that over the time there's been 13 certificates issued, 5 tax liens redeemed, and 7 outstanding tax lien certificates. So this is a property owner that pays late. They've paid off 5 of their tax liens. They don't want to lose their property, but it's not as important. So they just pay before they have to lose. Here's another property. The values on some of these properties aren't bad, but there is quite a few tax lien certificates. It would just be a matter of going through this and looking for some with a little bit lower tax liens. If the property value is good enough and it's at $6,000, you could look at possibly purchasing those tax liens. But let's go ahead and look at Putnam real quick. The first thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to go ahead and click on Preview Items for Sale. And it may be, and it very well could be, Broward is a big county. And so, sometimes the large banks will go through and just clean up after the sale. They'll purchase all of the best tax lien certificates. And so there might be some in here, but because they are one of the big counties, I do know that the banks really hit the over-the-counter sales in Broward County after that. And so that may be part of the problem, that some of these have a high amount of tax liens on it. But there could be, essentially a diamond in the rough. Well, once we get to the Putnam County office using Real Auction, we can see that the list looks very similar. But what I'll usually do is I will go up here and I will organize it by face amount. This way, essentially what I can do is I can start looking for tax liens by price. This website doesn't have that search tool that, Grant Street Group does, where we can search by specific tax liens. So really the only way we can search is by searching by price. So we can see a lot of different information along the top. First, we can see the certificate number. We can see the tax year, the certificate year. So this is a tax lien from, go ahead and make this bigger. Okay, this is a tax lien from 2010 was the year that they were delinquent. We can see the certificate is from 2011. This O next to the property, if we click over it, there are outstanding tax certificates on this property. So we know automatically from this O that there's other tax liens on this property. Right here is the parcel number. We can go ahead and click on that parcel number to pull up the property records. We can go ahead and see the face amount right here, and we can see the tax lien is active. This tax lien down here is unavailable, so it's no longer available for sale. We can also click here on the tax year to pull up information on the property. So let's go ahead and look at some tax liens. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and around the $700 range. And essentially, you just kind of got to go and look and be able to find it just by going up here to the top and clicking on the page number, and then just looking, finding the right page that way. So it may take a little bit, take a few minutes, but eventually you're going to be able to find it. So we see I'm up to 6,600 now. I should have wrote down the page numbers. Okay. Okay, so what I'm looking for here is I can see here is the tax year. This is the tax lien from 2014. From, the property taxes were delinquent in 2014. The certificate year is from 2015. Now next to that I can see the map. I can go ahead and click on that to pull up a Google map of the property. And then next to that we don't see an O here, right? So that means that this particular tax lien has no other tax liens on it. Now to find out more of the property, we're going to go ahead and click on this tax year. So here we can find information on the property. First of all, I can see the face value, the amount of the tax lien, $718.25. I can also see right here the assessed value of $10,362. Over here I can see that this property is a mobile home built in 1984, and here's the property's address. I also can see the property is about 1/4 of an acre. It's just under 1,400 square feet. So automatically I know a lot about this property. I know that this is a first-year tax lien, first time they've ever had one, because I don't see any redeemed certificates. It has assessed value of about 10 grand, and then we have, of course, the property address right here. Now we can also go ahead and click right here and pull up the property record on the county record. So once we go ahead and click on that, it's going to pull up the record. I can see the property owner here, the address, much of the same information. I can also see the improvement values down here, the legal description right there. I can also click on the value, see the assessed value, county value, the land information, 125 feet. And click on the sales information to see what this property might have sold for. So we can see that this property, it looks like it was in probate, a quitclaim deed issued on it. So possibly this was through family. We can click on improvements and see that this property is from 1984, is the year of the trailer. We can see that it's a mobile home here, right here. And then, of course, here is the replacement cost of $16,000. Then down here below, we can see some additional information. Base, the room, unfinished porch. And then we can go ahead and click here on images, and we can see the overhead view of the property. So it looks like there might be 2 properties here. Now from here, what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and look this property up using Google Maps and using Zillow.com. So we'll go ahead and go to Zillow, type it in www.zillow.com, and we just want to see if Zillow has this property. Also, we want to go to Google Maps. That way we can go ahead and see if it has a street view. We can see the overhead view if they have just that, and get a better idea of the property. So it doesn't look like they do have a street view, but I'm going to go ahead and click on the overhead view. Looks like this property's kind of more out in the the rural area. I can see the property located right here. We can go ahead and zoom in a little. So we can see that it is one property, and it does look like it has 2 different, essentially 2 different trailers or something, or some additions. We can also see photos down here of probably similar places within the area but they do not have a street view. So we could. It's going to take us to a different view actually. So we don't have the ability to see a street view, but let's go ahead and check to see what the value is. So we'll also go to Zillow, see if we can pull up the property information. Okay, so we can see that the estimate on this property is about $32,000, and there's actually inside photos of the property. So it's not real great, definitely a fixer-upper, but we can see that it's not that the roof isn't caving in. I mean, there's not serious damage. It's just old and needs to be remodeled. But what we're looking at is a property that has an estimated value of $32,000. Let's say that it's only worth $20,000. Still, at $20,000, if you could acquire this property with only a $600 tax lien, yes, it's not the stylish property. It's not the perfect photo type property, But what we need to look at tax lien investing really through an investor's point of view, an investor's point of reference. And is your money protected by this property? Well, yes. We already know that this property has sewer and water and the utilities there. There is other homes within the community, and somebody, a fixer-upper would be happy to buy this property, or maybe you're seller financing this property to a real good some real good people who maybe don't have a ton of money but want their own home and want to be able to fix this property up. If any improvements they make on the property, that's not going to be coming out of your pocket. Essentially, you'll be acting like the bank selling them this property. And you can find good people like that, where you can maybe they don't have the perfect credit, they had some type of problem, but they're good people, and they're willing to pay their bills on time, and they want to make this property into a home or some other type of property. There's a lot of different things you can be real creative when you're picking up property for a small percentage of its value. Let's say you did a foreclosure and in this property in Florida, and it went to the auction and didn't sell. Well, at that point, you've picked up the property for what? 2 years worth of delinquent taxes. It's 2014 now. If it goes through, it's 2015 certificate. If they're delinquent next year on it, essentially you'll be 1 year into it. You'll purchase that next year tax lien, and by the time that that second year comes around, you can foreclose on the property, in June of that of 2017. And you've foreclosed on it for essentially 2, maybe 3 years worth of tax and certificates. So you're looking what, $1,400, $1,200, maybe $1,500, $1,600 total, and you're getting a property that you could probably turn around and sell for anywhere between $15,000 to $35,000. It's just be a determination, determining exactly what the market is. But either way, this isn't a sexy tax and certificate, but your property, your money is going to be protected by the property. Let's look at a couple more. Okay. Okay, let's look at the next one. Okay, so it takes a little bit to go through it and look at these tax liens. Now here is a tax lien. We can see it's from 2014. We can see that this tax lien, there is outstanding tax lien certificates. So we know that there's going to be extra tax liens that are going to need to be paid. We can see this tax lien is $478.35. So let's find out a little bit more about it. Let's go ahead and click on the tax year. We can see here is the tax lien amount. We can see that there's 3 unadditional certificates for a total of $1,300.56. Excuse me, $1,356.69. It's been a long day. We can also see the address here. We can see the acreage, and of course we can see the property owner here. Then right here we can see the assessed value. We see it has a $22,960 assessed value. There's some type of $3,000 building value, and then the land is worth $19,960. So from here, we could go ahead and take this address and just really go through the same process that we went through before. With taxing certificates, we don't need to, do title searches or anything like that on them. We just need to make sure that our money's going to be protected, and if our money's going to be protected, it's going to be a good, safe investment, especially in a state like Florida, where you're not going to do the foreclosure. It's going to be held by the county, and there's a chance that somebody will buy it at the deed sale, better than at least a decent chance. If not, you could acquire the property, but essentially you're going to have a chance to earn an interest rate return that's high percentage. So we can see the property down here. It's this building lot right here. It may not be on Zillow, but let's just go ahead and try. Sometimes they will have lots. We can see it's right here, valued at $43,827. So we're looking at this lot right here. Let's find out a little bit more about it. Well, first of all, we can see the basic information here. We can go ahead and click on land value, land. We can see it's 125 feet. Click on the sales information, find out a little bit more about it. This property is in probate too, or was. And we can see, am I looking at the same property again? No. Let's see where we're at. Okay. So what we're going to do is, again, pull up the information. There we go. This is the right one. We're looking at the old, the last property. So we can see that this one, there was the last sold in 1991 with a death certificate issued on it. So, this property, see death and a bunch of warranty deeds. This is a property that probably was sold within the family. Now, if we go to the main information, of course, we have the owner, the address, the values down here below. And we can go ahead and click on land and see more about the property. 200 by 150 feet. It's zoned residential, mixed. And if we click on improvements, we're going to see what improvements are on this property. Oh, never mind. We're going to go to extras and special. That's where we're going to see that there's a septic tank and a well on this property. So there's built-in tank and well, and so that's obviously, that is why the increased value in this particular taxing certificate. And so, Zillow has it valued at $43,000. The assessed value is at $22,900, so $23,000. So even if we split that and we say the property is worth $30,000, you're essentially buying this taxing certificate, for first of all by purchasing the tax lien, and then paying off the outstanding taxing certificates and doing the foreclosure. What will happen, of course, is this tax lien will be sent to sell. If it sells, you will be paid back your money plus an 18% return. If it doesn't sell, then of course you'll be awarded the taxing certificate. And so really it's just a matter of going through and looking at these different tax liens. You'll be able to see the tax year here. If you're just looking for the safest tax liens, you can start by looking at 2014. Obviously, as it gets older, it's going to get a little bit more risky. I would probably not look back at tax liens that are more than 3 years old. So, you can go back 2 years if you want to start the foreclosure process immediately. So you'd look from tax liens from 2013, maybe 2012. But you're just going to want to see how many additional tax liens are on it, because if there's 7 or 8 tax liens, see what that total amount is, because that total amount will have to be paid before you can foreclose on the property. So you just want to make sure that that amount isn't exceeding really what the property's value is, because with tax liens we want if we want to earn the interest, and we want the best tax liens that our money can buy, so that our money is going to be protected. And so essentially, go ahead and get started with over-the-counter tax liens. Really, you can just go through and have a little bit of fun. Even if you don't plan on buying, you can go through and look at tax liens. So we can see this one's from 2014, but there is outstanding tax liens. Now we can go ahead and click on it and find out more about it. So this tax lien has a value of $9,300. It's 2.26 acres. We see the address up here is on Jaffa Road. The tax lien's $475. There's 5 tax liens on it for $2,300. There's also 1 redeem certificate. So depending on what, there is quite a few tax liens at a pretty high value here. But even this tax lien, depending on where it's located, what type of property it is, even that tax lien will probably be a safe investment. You are going to make your money back either through the property owner paying it off, which they've already done before, and then through, if not, through the deed sale, where it has a good chance of selling. And then if it doesn't sell there, then essentially you'll be awarded the property, and you'll still got a pretty good property. So we can see that it looks like it's kind of in a lake type community. In fact, it's actually across the street from the lake right here. And so we could do, you could do a little bit more research on any one of these properties to determine if it's going to be a safe investment. And as long as that total lien amount is low versus the property's value, and the property has value and use, then you're making a great investment. As long as it has those two things, you're going to be safe 99% of the time, 99.9% of the time, because your money is backed not only by real estate, it's also backed by state law, and essentially it's really going to be a win-win situation. There's not a lot of investments out there that you can get started with where you're getting a guaranteed interest rate return. You're not wondering what's going to happen tomorrow. Is my investment going to cut in half? Am I going to look at my return at the end of the year and see that I only made 2% or I lost money? Versus a tax lien certificate, well, you know exactly how much money you are earning. With these tax liens that we're looking at here, you're essentially earning 1.5% per month off your investment. And we can see that there is some homes within this area that look to be, not bad homes for anywhere from $50,000 value up to $100,000 around this community. So in picking up this property, you might be able to sell it for $10,000, $20,000. And at that point, even if you sold it for 10, you would still be able to make a great profit. Even selling it, it's 5,000 or 6,000 in as far as a quick claim deed or through seller finance, you could make a decent little return. And there's going to be a lot better tax liens than this one. This one we just barely looked at. If it didn't have such a high roll up, this amount right here, if this was like $1,000, I'd be a little bit more stoked on this tax lien, but that's a little bit high. You're looking at almost $3,000, so a little high. You can find some better tax liens, but really, if you were to invest in this, your money's probably going to be pretty safe. Even in this tax lien, which is there's going to be a lot better that you can purchase. So go ahead and get started. Start going through, and even if you just have a little time, go through and start looking at some of these tax lien certificates. You can find the different auctions here on Secrets of Tax Lien Investing, and there's going to be a lot of different counties you can research, not only through Grant Street Group auction systems and also Grill Auction. So again, I want to thank everyone. I apologize that we weren't able to do the webinar live this evening, and I recorded it, but I wanted to get it recorded and send it out to you so that you guys could have a chance to participate to watch a training, even if we weren't able to do it together. So we'll be again together next week, and we'll have the live webinar. So I look forward to talking to you guys then, answering your questions. Of course, if you have any questions, go to the forum section. This is a great place to ask questions. So you can go ahead and go to the member section, click on the forum, and go ahead and ask your questions here. You can go ahead and introduce yourself. I want this to start being a community, so go ahead and introduce yourself, and people will be able to respond to you through once you've created a little profile there. So again, I want to thank everyone for being on the line this evening. Actually, we're on the line, but I appreciate you'll be watching this after. And again, let's go out and make some money in tax lien and deed investing. Thank you guys, and have a great day, and we'll talk again soon.